Alright, so finishing up on the door trim on 64 Impala, over on the passenger side at this point, and had many issues with screws on this particular piece. But again, you've got one screw here and here, and this piece actually fits over the piece on the right. Once you get these screws, there you go. Once you get these screws out, if you take a flathead, let's see if I can get this, here we go. If you get a flathead screwdriver and start kind of getting it under this edge, this piece will start to wiggle and you can lift it off. At that point, the piece on the right, obviously I already had the screws out of it. You just kind of wiggle it back and forth and it'll come off. It's kind of fell down into the door track, so we'll have to get that out. But main reason for this video is kind of put a capper on the end of the door trim, which is now gone, been removed. As far as the screws, these were really a pain in the behind to get these drilled out. What we had to do on some of them are still not actually removed, but we drilled them out enough to where we could lift the trim piece up over the actual screw head. So that was quite a bear to tackle that. And you see this one is still actually in there, kind of the same thing. We just ground it down enough, I say ground it, but drill it out enough to where we could just lift a piece of trim over it, and it was no longer holding it in place, and we could just lift it up. That's going to have to be taken out of there. Some of the things we did, particularly for this front piece, the screw is really small. Let's see if I can get that one, but the far left piece on the front trim, what we had to do there, essentially the screw is not that tightly put in there, but the rust holds it to the point to where when you try to unscrew it, the rust is keeping it in there, and you start stripping the head. So what we did was actually took a hammer and bumped it 4 or 5 times to kind of break that bond between rust on the screw and rust on the what it's actually screwed into on the frame. And after doing that, then we were able to take a Phillips screwdriver and loosen it. So that's something you might want to try. The other thing to keep in mind is this, let me actually get this piece out of here because this will make a lot more sense. Apologize for the wiggling and jiggling. Alright, so this right piece of trim, if you're not able to get the screw to unscrew with the rust and so on, kind of bonding it in there, there's this piece, this rubber metal piece, which goes over the trim, which you can see here. And if you take that piece and kind of work it back away from the screw hole, we were able to, on a couple of these, actually take a pair of vice grips or channel locks and pinch that screw hard enough to where we could actually start to turn it. And at that point, once you get it moving, it's pretty easy to get it back out. But just drilling the screws are really rather difficult. I think we broke 3 bits on it. Again, could be cheap bits, could be dull bits, but nevertheless, it was a bit of a pain and quite time consuming. So hopefully that'll help you out. If you can be in that back, you can get a better pinch on the head, but with that in place, there's really not enough to grab. So hopefully that'll be some good tips you guys can use. And the door trim is out at this point, if I can free it from the actual door frame. So yeah, we're ready to get this guy cleaned up and see if it's going to be reusable. And same thing on the back end of this, with a screw hole. If you can kind of move this out of the way, you might be able to get a pinch on that head with a pair of vice grips and get that screw turning. If just bumping it with a hammer 4 or 5 times does not get it freed up enough to turn. So once again, if you guys this benefits you, if you would, like and subscribe. Got more things to come. Actually got to move on to the back window, removing it and the chrome on the outside of the window there as well. So more work to do.